Dear Reddit, last night, I finally went on a date with this guy who's been asking me out for the past couple of months. He took me to a weight loss seminar. What's your what the fricking frick is this moment in your dating history? Went out with a girl for a first date. She took me to a Kumdo lesson, which is a Korean sword fighting sport. I thought that was cool, but it was an advanced class and I made somewhat of a fool of myself, but all in good fun. Anyway, it turned out that she was bringing me there because she wanted me to be part of a documentary about foreigners in Korea. So my looking like a fool was broadcast nationwide. We then visited the Grandmaster's house for Machiavelli and the film crew started interviewing me. They were basically focusing on my relationship with the girl I was going out with. They didn't seem to understand it was a first date. So here I am trying to answer awkward questions without embarrassing both of us on national television. There's bad dates. Then there's nationally televised bad dates. There was a guy who had been asking me to hang out for a while and I finally said yes. He wanted to hang out at his house with his roommate, so I went. He took me into the basement where there was a dirty mattress on the floor and nothing else. I ran. To this day I have no idea what it was about, but I ran and never told anyone about it until now. Finally someone with common sense. Your brain says run and you did. Good for you. When I was a teenager I worked at a retail store in the mall and a guy who worked a few stores down would always come in and talk to me. He was super sweet and genuine and would randomly take me to lunch, bring me coffee and the like. It was nice to just have someone to talk to and who seemed genuinely interested in me and what I had to say. He asked me on a date a few times and I always declined. I don't like the idea of dating someone who I work next to, just in case it goes sour. After a month or two I finally agreed to go on a date with him. Because good guys are hard to find, I couldn't just let him pass by. He picks me up at my house and on our way to dinner we get into a car accident. The driver's side was T-boned pretty badly and we ended up having to go to the hospital where he contacted his roommate, who then contacted my date's girlfriend. I must know what happened when his girlfriend found out he got in a car accident taking another woman out on a date. After my freshman year of college I met a guy on OkCupid and we went to get dinner at Fridays as our first date. Offered to give me a ride, but I said no. He was a couple years older, well dressed and started talking about how he'd started his own business after college and it was going well. Good for him. Bragging a bit, but hey, that's an accomplishment. So after we order he says let's play a game. We'll each take out our wallets and compare what's in them. Wasn't a joke. Literally started showing me his credit cards and bragging about the high limits. Ending with clearly you can't afford to pay for this dinner, but don't worry I can cover you. I was pissed and protested but he wouldn't take no for an answer. So as we leave he says he wants to show me his car. Unfortunately it was before mine in the lot so I had to walk by it. It was a white, windowless serial killer van. He begged me to frick him in it, right there in the Fridays parking lot. I was pretty glad I drove separately. Hopefully I won't need to do dating again ever, but if I do, your story has made me decide that if I do I will take my own transport. A guy I had met 3 days previously offered to pick me up and hang out. I was cool with that, but he ended up dragging me around on errands. We went to his dentist appointment, and then when I said I wanted to leave, he said he'd give me a ride home but only in exchange for a BJ. I was pretty scarred about dating after that, and no, I didn't give him a BJ. I got out right there and walked to a bus stop. I went on a date with a guy that I met online. He told me to dress nice and that he was going to take me out for dinner. He took me to Subway, ordered a foot-long teriyaki chicken sub. He looked at me and said, "I hope you like teriyaki chicken." We shared the sub in his car. Safe to say there was no second date. Went to pick a girl up at her house after meeting on a dating website. She seemed significantly larger than her photo, but only in the lower abdominal region. This is when I realized that she had failed to mention that she was pregnant. Guy I worked with kept asking me out. I continuously said no. After about a year, I started to feel bad for the guy and said yes to a date. He asked me to lunch so I figured it could be a quick easy date. He picked me and took me to Wendy's, where he made me order off the dollar menu, and I could only get 2 things. After this very quiet lunch where he hunkered over his chicken nuggets like I would steal them, he said he needed to stop at Walmart. We go in and he heads to the lotion section. Strange, but what ifs. He then grabs 2 scented lotions and asks which one I like better. Being nice, I pick one, and he responds with, "Great. I'll use this for your massage." Oh, luckily I had to work in 2 hours and told him the massage would have to wait. I spent the next 3 months trying to avoid him until he quit. I met this cute girl in college. I asked her out a couple times. She was really into me. Numerous occasions we sat in a coffee shop for 6, 7, 8 hours talking the night away, but couldn't do anything about it as she was seeing someone else. Okay, fair enough. I'm a little persistent. We hang out on and off. 6 months later, after she and her significant other break up, or so I was told, we start seeing each other. Fast forward 8 months and she's at my place 6, 7 days a week. Has taken over half my condo with her stuff. We commute to work together. I'm having supper with her parents. Always hanging out with her sisters and their boyfriends. She's always over at my parents'. Things are going really well. I was crazy about her. Part of the family and all that good stuff. About a week before Christmas she sits me down and basically says that she never really broke up with her boyfriend. He was just out west. He was coming home and we were over. She was just seeing me on the side and quite frankly didn't understand why I wasn't seeing someone else at the same time, seeing how we weren't all that serious. Excuse me, what? Wow, how low can you go? That's just pure evil. At least you're not with her. I had a guy take me to a beer and Christ thing. He was uber Catholic and thought I could benefit from letting Christ into my cold Jewish heart. So I go. I'm open-minded. I'm only half Jewish and have always been interested in other religions. It was going okay until the priest, the speaker of the night, told us a hypothetical tale of our brother who is paralyzed. We have the ability to cure him with stem cells. He will walk as soon as the transaction is complete. How many of you here would purchase these stem cells and allow your brother to walk again? My hand shoots up. I look around the room. Nothing. No hands. I then notice everybody staring at me, including my date and the priest. I was blessed out like nobody's business and was told I was an embarrassment to my date. Good times. Not sure how long ago this was for you. If it was recently, you could have pointed out to everyone there that stem cell research and treatment no longer requires the use of fetal stem cells, and in fact, can be done with stem cells from an adult. Then ask the priest and everyone present who wouldn't donate their own stem cells to save their brother. Science is pretty awesome. On my first date with a guy off an internet dating site, he took us to the Scientology Museum in London. I thought, original. Easy to find things to talk about, laugh at the craziness of. This could be fun. Then he proceeded to read every single piece of writing on every single exhibit. Ask the attendant very probing questions about how one goes about joining Scientology, etc. And sounding slightly too interested to just be intrigued about a religion. Also, he was visibly sweating. Once we were done there, we went for a glass of wine and he told me he used to shoot H. I was out of there like a shot. When I was young and stupid, I dated a guy with a temper. He would get mad about something stupid like saying goodbye too quickly on the phone, pick a fight and we'd break up. He would call a day or two later and we would make up. After a few months I had figured out the cycle and I was fed up. So, when he picked a fight as usual, I ended it and then didn't take him back. While we were dating, I had become close with his sisters and his mom loved me. We had scheduled a girls' lunch and his sister begged me to go. I finally said yes and went. Everything was fine and I had a great time. The whole lunch was probably 2 hours long. At the end I walked to their car with them and the mom grabbed me and said, "Hear him." Out of the car comes her son, WTF, who was trying to explain to me why we should be together. I just walked past him to my car as he ran after me. He ended up picking a fight with me because it was my fault we broke up and I didn't even call him so he could fix it. Then he threw rocks at my car as I drove away. I wish I had a picture of what my face looked like when he came out of that car. I never spoke to him again and never accepted another invitation from his family. Sounds like his family didn't realize how crazy he was. He probably treated his mom and sisters as badly as he treated you. Oh no, That would be so hilarious if I wouldn't feel bad for you. The only fricked up moment was when my date was on the phone for quite a while talking to her friends that I didn't know. It was quite boring, obviously. It even got to the point that the old lady who had coffee next to our table in the restaurant told me that back in her day, the guys would have not accepted that behavior from their dates. Not that I want to relive the old days, but I heeded her advice. Dang, that old lady just called you a bee. I'm sure this has happened to everyone who has dated online. I met a guy online who seemed really nice. We exchanged a few emails and got along well enough, so we decided to meet up for a matinee. We exchanged pics so that we could add each other at the theater where we were meeting. I show up, expecting to see the heavy-set dude around my age because that's what his profile and pic said. Instead, he was about 20 years older and 100 pounds heavier than his picture. I am a fairly open-minded person when it comes to dating, and I know that many folks embellish, but come on. We watched our movie in silence and politely parted ways. I thought you were meeting up for a manatee and was like, whoa, what a cool date. There's been a few, but the absolute worst was the woman who turned up to the pub with literally no money, expecting me to buy her drinks and dinner. I wouldn't have minded if she'd have told me beforehand, but this was completely out of the blue. So anyway, we sat there making awkward conversation. Or at least I tried to start a conversation. Told her about my life. Asked her questions. She was too busy texting and phoning her friends to really take notice. So eventually we did get talking. And then out of nowhere, she told me that she killed her dog. Not accidentally either. I just upped and left and avoided all contact. That was 2 years ago. Jenny, how do I get out of this lol? Tell him you killed her dog lol. Had one. Not really a date though. A few years back in high school. Socially awkward, lanky, weird English guy called Eric. We were friends in the same group. And in the same maths class. He had the hots for me for a while. He kept hinting at dating and seeing a movie. All my guy friends asked me to give him a chance. He's not that bad. Blah blah. I decided not to date him but to try and be more accepting of him, even though he kinda gave me the creeps. And hopefully if we were just friends he would get the message and leave me alone in the creepy sense. I invited him around to my place for video games and a few rounds of pool. However, I made sure my dad was home as Derek didn't make me feel all that comfortable for some reason. Anyway, we take turns at THPS2 and head down to the garage for a few rounds of pool. I whip his butt at pool and he realizes he needs to get home. I see him to the door and say goodbyes and we have a brief hug. As I pulled away from the hug, he grabbed me by the wrists quite hard. Derek, please reschedule. Please kiss me. Me dude. What are you doing? Let me go. Derek holding my wrists tighter and now hurting me. Please, please, I've never been kissed. Please, me WTF Derek. Let me go. By this point he's trying to bring me closer to him and puckering up for a kiss, still keeping a really strong and painful grip on my wrists. I'm squirming trying to get away from him. He was really strong though. Me let the frick go or I am calling down my dad. Derek, you wouldn't dare. Please. Just kiss me. Me darad. Come here. I swear. I've never seen a boy move faster out of a door than Derek did then. My dad chased him down the road calling him every name under the sun. Last I heard about him he had been done for physical assault. This is the point where you don't feel bad for kicking a guy in the balls. So I went on a couple dates with this girl and she was giving me some signs that she was ready to get a little physical. So I lean in close and try to kiss her. And she turns her face away from me. Stunned, I end up going home and thinking it was over between us. Later on, she contacts me and starts hinting we should go out again. I decide to go for it. Again, after getting some heavy hints, and she pushes me away. So now I just ask, what's going on? She says, I am on dates with you so I don't feel like I'm undesirable, but I'm not attracted to you. She called me the next day and I told her I'm not dating people who make me feel undesirable, then hang up. You may have just solved one of the biggest mysteries of my life. I am going to assume I was once in the same situation as you. In college, this guy from one of my classes asked me to go out with him out of the blue. We'd never even talked before, but he was pretty cute so I said sure. We exchanged numbers and he said he'd call me with details. He called the next day and told me we were going to a restaurant that was way out of my price range. We're talking like no way will this bill will be under $100. I tried talking him out of it, and when that didn't work, flat out saying I couldn't afford something like that, but he insists and tells me not to worry. This all really should have been a clue to me. So I say fine and agree to go. We get to the restaurant and the waiter comes over and I go to order the cheapest thing on the menu when he stops me and says ignore her. We're both having the steak, but I don't like steak. She's just saying that because she's poor. We'll have steak, and shoos the waiter away. I'm mortified and pee and want to leave, but he was my ride. He tries to make conversation and just proves to me that he really isn't, but then he says he has to go to the bathroom and leaves. I'm sitting there for a good 10 minutes. Before he texts me, hahaha, I got the shoots from drinking last night, don't eat without me. That was the last straw. I called the waiter over, pay for my meal, and go to the Starbucks down the street to call my friend to pick me up. TL. Dr. Guy was trying to impress me and was the world's biggest butt. I paid for just my meal, not his, and I'm well aware I didn't owe him anything. I just wanted to make a clean break from this guy. WTF. The guy sounds like he's 12. A girl I had just met asked me out. She wanted to take me to dinner. We end up at this little Italian place. She says she knows someone that works there. When our waiter arrives, he appears visibly shaken, stuttering. She introduces me to him. This is her friend she mentioned before. I can see it right away. This guy has a thing for her, and here she is introducing him to her date. She then bugs him for special orders and asks if we can get our meals free. He really seems upset, but gives her the anything for you look and agrees. I decline and pay for my own meal. I felt really bad for this guy. I could just see his torment at watching this girl date someone else. She was very attractive and very friendly. I assumed he just got friend-zoned. I hung out with her a few more times, but backed off of the romantic part. Then I found out that the guy from the restaurant was her ex-boyfriend, who she had just dumped a few days before and had been dating since high school. This was 2-3 years after I graduated. TL. DR. Girl tried to get her recent ex-BF to serve me free food. I was already cringing before I got to the bit about being an ex-boyfriend. My god, that's just... So I'm working at Borders. This was around the time that it had just gone into voluntary administration in Australia, and I'm chatting to a customer for a bit about how I am trying to find work as a freelance graphic designer while finishing up uni. She mentions to me that she might have some work for me. I give her my card and think I've totally found a new client. She invites me to a local coffee shop to chat, and I'm really excited about some prospective work. During our coffee chat, she asks me what I do. Okay, she must have forgotten, I thought. I told her I do graphic design and she goes, ooh cool. I used to do graphic design too, but I don't need to do that anymore. This is where I think, hang on, why is she even talking to me? So she pretty much was trying to recruit me to pretty much become her lackey and sign up for a pyramid scheme, where I can sell vitamins and whatnot. Get people I know to work for me and earn even more money and get cool crap like holidays and loads of money and gift cards and clothes and everything. But she just would not stop selling it to me. I regret giving her my card. I got a text from her the other day saying that we should catch up. Yeah, number. So pretty much, this friend of yours seems to be milking every single acquaintance he knows. Acquaintances are good because they are not close friends, but they are still connections. This lady I met seemed to wave to a lot of people, so I'm assuming she had tried to poach them from their monotonous retail jobs as well. Honestly, the best thing to do is just ignore his texts and emails and whatnot. Works a charm. A few years ago, my wife and I were invited over to a friend's house for drinks. He fortunately decided to warn me a day or two before the event that it wasn't just for drinks, but wouldn't say what it was. We knew he dabbled in Amway, so we figured we were in for the sales pitch. It was also supposed to be a group gathering of 10-12 people, and we thought we could sneak into the back, make an appearance, and leave, as if we were the targets. We were the only invitees. So we arrived 2 hours late, and the Amway people were all sitting on the couch just waiting for us. We had to sit through the entire presentation, pretend to be interested, and pretend not to notice that the woman presenting was a complete psycho. She kept saying that she was right at the top of the organization, pulling in the big bucks, and she is only doing this presentation as a favor to James to get his business started. We finally managed to leave without committing to anything. James called me later and told me he was dating the woman, and she insisted he let her give a presentation. It all ended well when they were at a restaurant a few months later, got into a fight, and she stabbed him in the arm with a fork. That was the end of Amway. Unfortunately, I doubt that was truly the end of Amway, although I love the thought. So anyway, she stabs him, and then Amway caught fire. Back in high school, there was a very beautiful girl named Melissa in a few of my classes. This was the mid to late 90s, and pregnant teenagers weren't as common as they are now, so I think it added to her mystique that she had a child. It never bothered me, though. I just thought she was the most beautiful woman I had ever seen. So, any chance I got to be around her, I took it. She needed a tutor? Check. Someone to talk to? Check. I never had the guts to ask her out, though. I wasn't much of a looker myself in high school, so it took me a pretty darn long time to do it. Finally, I did, and she said yes. I can't remember how it went down, but I think we decided that I'd pick the restaurant. She'd pick something else to do. So, she shows up with her sister. That should have been my cue to nope it back inside my house. But, I didn't, because I was an idiot. We went to eat, and then she said she had a surprise for me that she thought I'd really enjoy. I was excited. Did she really plan something? We pull up to a small convention center and start to head in. I'm already starting to WTF it when we make our way towards one of the rooms, and there it is. Clear as day on a sign out front of the door. Amway. I cannot describe my internal anguish and feelings of absolute fail during the lecture and the meetup afterwards. They didn't even sit with me. We'd arrived late, and they moved to open seats on one side while I sat on the other. I barely remember how I answered the inundation of Amway people's questions, but somehow I made it through the evening. I remember never even seeing Melissa or her sister during this time, and as we finally met up to go home, I was utterly destroyed. We got home. She looks me dead in the eyes and tells me that she had a really nice time tonight. I echoed the sentiment, told her sister it was nice to meet her, and went inside. Never even looked at Melissa again. So my friend scored a date with a girl he'd had a crush on for years. A super hot crush with a strict and religious family. He tells me he needs me to come on a double date because she will only go out with him if her cousin can come along. Well, off we go, and her cousin is surprisingly hot too. This favor seems to be working out in my favor. The plan is to start with an Irish picnic on the private beach. We sat on benches and drank a beer. My date has one beer and starts to act odd. She tells me I'm so good looking. She's whispering and giggling with her cousin. Then another group shows up and we all start chatting. Somehow she offers to give one of the guys there a ride home as we're leaving to go do whatever was next. She pulls him into the backseat and her cousin sits next to her for some reason. The sun has gone down and this guy only lives 5 minutes away. We're driving for like a minute when my buddy leans over and whispers, "Dude, she's blowing that guy." I look back as a streetlight lights them up. Oh yes, she is. To be clear, we are all in the same car. Now we drop off BJ guy who is like, "Thanks guys." And this is where the night gets worse. My buddy says, "I need you to just come with us to eat." I'm sorry but I'll pay. He's super intense about it, but also I'm starting to laugh about this blatant sluttiness and his date just looks so embarrassed. So I grudgingly say fine. We're driving like 5 minutes again and this girl is still trying to talk to me from the back seat. Then she leans forward and starts to kiss my neck. I pull away and tell her to stop. This happens maybe 10 more times and her cousin is restraining her and is mortified. I'm leaning forward in my seat to get away from crazy. Okay, she is too crazy for a restaurant, so my buddy decides to do a nearby local cheesesteak place that is pretty popular. We get inside and my friend starts laughing at me. He tells me to check my neck in the mirror. Yes, I somehow have a crazy ass hickey. I don't even have time to lose my crap on this girl when she hops over the counter and starts yelling an order into the microphone at the register. "We'll have fries." We dragged her back out to the car and sat her in the back seat. I stood guard from outside the car, so she couldn't blow any passerby or anything, while my friend had a dinner date. The whole time the crazy girl was begging me to please F her and trying to climb out. I thought less of her cousin for leaving her, but she said she needed to wait for her to sober up or whatever before they could go home. That took about 2 more hours of annoying. I actually saw her the next day and she couldn't look anyone in the eyes or talk to us. There was no second date for anyone. TLDR. Girl had 1 beer and went crazy. Blew another guy on my date. Try not to suck any dong on your way to the parking lot. I remember a hot little gal in college who agreed to go out with me. She said she had a surprise for me. Christian revival meeting. I was on the bus once watching a conversation like this take place and it ended with, dude who was unlikely to get laid, yeah alright. Who else is going? Hot Christian girl. Well, Jesus will be there. Met a girl on a Cupid. I take her out to dinner. She seems a little odd but overall nice and the conversation is going well. We both like video games, so I invite her over to my place after dinner for some Xbox action. She proceeds to drink all my liquor and take all my leftover hydrocodone from a work injury I had suffered a few months prior. She starts unplugging all my crap and calling me names like Brian and Todd and saying how she doesn't like it when people hit her. I tell her I'm taking her home and have to physically drag her to my car with her kicking and screaming the whole way there. She then tried to get out of my car while we are on the highway, but thankfully I had the sense to lock the doors and she was too fricked up to realize it. She gets pee and starts hitting me while I'm driving on the highway. I finally get her home, get her through her front door and leave. On my way back to my car, her freaking iPhone hits me in the back of the head. I drive home bleeding from my head. She calls me the next day from a number I don't recognize asking how our date went and if I knew where her phone was. I laugh and hang up. You gotta be kidding. There's a whole movie in that paragraph. Setting. Blind date at a sushi restaurant. I was 24. He was 19. We already had nothing to talk about, so I told him this story. I had gone to the local game stop for the sole reason to talk to the guy behind the counter. I got in line, had some small talk, and as I was getting my receipt, I asked him, "Hey, are you seeing anyone?" His reply, "Me, I'm gay." I was mortified that my gaydar failed me, so I just gave him a high five and left. I was still shocked and cried in my car. About 5 minutes after I finished that story, I look over to the 8-person group beside us. I caught the eye of the very same gay guy I hit on at the mess stop. We waved to each other. He was with his boyfriend. Whoa. At least you know he was actually gay and not using that as an excuse to turn you down. A guy I was totally into moved pretty far away. We were interested in each other though, spoke a lot, and eventually he decided to visit me for a weekend. I imagined romantic things happening. He wanted to go wallpaper shopping, and so it was that our first date was in the home furnishings department of John Lewis. He got lots of very ugly samples. Then we went to Habitat where he looked at lamps and said the word "R" very loudly. Within 5 years we were married. Met a guy from a dating site. Guy in the photo sort of looked like Kevin Smith. I get to the restaurant and order a drink. I told the waiter I was meeting a blind date, so make it strong one. Guy I meet looks like Mo from the Three Stooges but much thinner. Same haircut and all. He proceeded to tell me that he lost all of the weight due to medical issues. I did not press further because we were having dinner drinks. He worked at a gaming store, so he took off his overshirt and was wearing a severely stained white undershirt. We are talking yellow pits to the max here. While talking about art, I notice that he keeps scratching his upper arm under the shirt sleeve. He asks if I want to see his tattoo. I say okay, and when he lifts the sleeve there is a cross tattoo, but his arm is covered in acne, which is what he was scratching picking at. We are at a Tex-Mex place. I order another drink and he orders a meal. He tells the waiter several times that he doesn't want tomatoes. Meal comes, and while talking he is using one of his 2 long fingernails to scratch the inside of his nose. He proceeds to clean the underside of his nail on the stack of napkins in the center of the table so his boogies are there for all to see. When I think I have enough liquid courage to run, the waiter comes by and date guy flips on him because he found a tomato in his conquiso dip. He proceeds to say very loudly, "I cannot have tomatoes, dude, because I have irritable bowel syndrome. I wanted to die." Everyone was staring at us. He excused himself to the bathroom shortly after, and the waiter came flying over and said, "Hey, if you need to split, don't worry, me and the girls will cover your drinks." I was so grateful, but I didn't want to be mean, so I waited. The waiter brings the check and Mo, after patting his pants several times, says, "Oh crap, I forgot my wallet. Let me borrow your cell and I will call my mom and tell her to grab it off my dresser and bring it." I don't think I ever paid a check fast enough in my life. After a day he emailed asking when we could go out again. I told him I couldn't, and I didn't feel like we clicked. He called me shallow. LOL. One of the people I dated took me to her parents' house for our first date, wherein I listened to her dad talk for an hour about this deer that he was so inept at killing it took 4 bullets to finally put down. It's times like those I wish I had a jetpack. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.